Live from the offices of Great River Investments in the beautiful city of Burlington, Iowa, this is the Marvin Knows Finances show. I am your host, Marvin Thompson, your certified financial planner, and joining me today is Joe Jolan of Jolan Media in West Burlington, Iowa. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to listen in, and for all your listeners on Google Podcasts and Spotify, don't forget to click the subscribe button. If you prefer to see how we make the show come together, please check out our YouTube channel, Marvin Knows Finances, and click subscribe there as well. Just like the last and every time, I have to take care of a little business before we get moving too far forward to please my compliance department. Marvin Thompson is an investment advisor representative and a registered representative with Brokers Financial member SIPC. Opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of Brokers Financial. The topics discussed and opinions given are not intended to address the specific needs of any listener. Great River Investments LLC does not offer legal or tax advice. Listeners are encouraged to discuss their financial needs with the appropriate professional regarding your individual circumstances. So, Joe, our topic of the week actually comes from my daughter, Natalie, this week,
she did a great
which
job.
I love.
Yeah.
So, to give you a little background, Natalie is working as an LPN at one of our local nursing homes and is starting to focus more on the money she's making because right now she's just picking up insane hours and making literally more money than she's ever made in her life, which is fantastic. So she called me up the other day, sent me a text, whatever it was, and said, "Hey, Dad, can you help me put together a budget?" So when the time comes, she's prepared to move out, do her own thing, and kind of, not only survive, but excel on the financial thing.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking, this is our 20th podcast now, which thank you all for listening, by the way. We've really never talked about money and relationships. I think we've dabbled into some of the conversations before,
Yep.
but we've gone over the budgeting process before on this budget podcast, so we're not going to be doing that again. But Natalie's questions got me thinking about money and relationships because she's at the age where eventually that will become a near-term reality for her and her boyfriend, and she will want to move on to that next step of life. So what type of advice am I talking about? So money problems are one of the two main issues that cause relationship problems, okay? I'm sure we can all guess what the other one is. But this does not have to be the case. So here are some pointers that, we wanted to come up with today to make you kind of consider some advice that I gave my children or will give my children as they advance through life. So number one and most important, if you are not married, do not commingle funds or debts, okay? Now, bottom line, don't do it. This is going to be an extremely hard concept for some people to grasp onto because if you're at the point in your relationship where you're talking about spending an eternity with somebody and you have two people, you automatically want to start paying each other's bills and stuff like that, okay? Unfortunately, life has a funny way of screwing things up. So, we've had a situation, and I'll just use this as an example, where there was a lady who was very financially responsible with her money, had done a good job saving through college, had her career going and stuff like that. She starts dating a gentleman who's not quite as fiscally responsible. They're in complete love with each other, okay? We start talking about whether it's a good idea for her to help him pay off the debts before they're married. And the advice was no, okay? Don't do that. Because sure enough, what happened is the relationship fell apart. She was able to walk away, free and clear, so to speak, not including the emotional heartbreak, but the financial responsibility part.
Yep.
And the gentleman was left, holding his debt like he should have been from the very beginning. So the other piece of advice that we gave her was, look, if you think this is going to be a long-term situation and you're a good saver, let him continue to make his payments as he's been doing on his own, okay? But you can start building up some savings on the side, so when you are married and your money becomes his and his money becomes yours and your debts become his and his debts become yours, then you have some money to kind of knock that out of there, okay?
Yeah.
But I was super glad that she took the responsibility to not do it. I don't think it caused a lot of warm, fuzzy feelings between the two of them, because she told him no, but the reality of it was the right thing to do.
Sure.
So if you are not married, do not commingle funds or debts. It's just not going to work out. Before you get married, you need to have a discussion with your partner and yourself about your beliefs towards money and debt. This is kind of an eye-opening situation for a lot of people.
Sure.
It's funny because sometimes people will go into a relationship and they think one thing, but the reality is different. Okay. You and Crystal as an example. You guys seem to be a very good team when it comes to money, and she's a very money not driven person, but very money smart person because of what she does for a living. So did you guys have that conversation back in the day?
I don't think we did. And early on, I mean, we were like-minded in our beliefs, but as far as financially, we might not have had that conversation. We had the conversation of how many kids we want, and do we, some of the other bigger decisions too, but probably not as much as we should have. So,
and same here. Probably not as much as we should have.
Yeah.
It's funny because you mentioned, people talking about, goals, how many kids to have, do we want to put them through college, things like that. But, talking to somebody about, I don't have a problem buying a $70,000 car, and the other spouse is like, whoa, $70,000 car, I was thinking $7,000 car. Those are the kind of things you need to have. I've also heard recently that churches, like you go to pre-counseling for churches and stuff like that, churches are actually requiring people to take a money course. Have this discussion.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic idea. So make sure that if you're at that stage of life where, marriage in the next 2, 5, 10 years, whatever the time may be, that you and your significant other sit down and actually talk about what are your beliefs towards money. I know it's weird to say that, but you really should have that conversation.
Yeah, and I think for us too, we got married young, and so neither one of us had money to begin with, and so it was probably a little easier of a conversation when neither one of us have money. But I suppose even still having this idea of, you're discussing careers and where their careers are going to go, and typically those careers will have kind of an implied income level, and so I suppose it is a natural conversation. And it would be more difficult, if you're older and you're already established in your career and already established in, you said fiscally responsible. Yeah, it would be more that's more of a key conversation to have. So,
and you bring up an excellent point. It seems like when we were younger, and maybe it was just our fault, or we just didn't make enough money back in the day. We didn't have a lot to really discuss.
Right. It's like we're both broke. So
hey, you got enough money to pay the tolls going to work today?
Right.
Kind of thing. But these kids nowadays,
man, yeah.
My God, they're making so much money. They can make so much money.
Yep.
We did that thing with your kids here not too long ago, and I'm just thinking, my God, they can make a couple $100 a day if they just really apply themselves. That's a lot of money to be making, and there really seems to be no ceiling on it.
Right. Well, there's no ceiling, and then there's no real discipline on saving. And so I think, especially referring back to that podcast, and talking with them, I think it was good that we discussed, the saving aspect.
They got to learn how to save, and just like they learn how to make it, they got to learn how to save it. So. That also brings up another thing. My mind's kind of going 100 miles an hour right now, but a second marriage for people, where they actually are more established in life. If you have a situation where you have a spouse who's significantly more well off than the other, and you want to protect that for maybe kids from the first marriage or something like that, prenups.
Yeah.
Oh my God, a prenup.
Yeah.
I thought that was only for rich people and celebrities.
Right.
Nope. That's for a lot of people. So.
And that might even need to be another podcast because, there's been a few situations where second marriages, or maybe one of the spouses died and a new spouse comes in, and kids from the first marriage, and, trusts and wills are altered. And
we may need to get me a win for that one.
Yeah, that's way beyond my pay grade.
Let's get that attorney in here and give some legal advice. Okay. So you're young. Once marriage happens, let's talk about financial responsibility to each other. Okay. Honesty is the key. You have to be honest with your spouse. We've talked about the whole budget process before and having those budgetary meetings. These can't be one-sided things, folks. If Joe's sitting there talking to his wife and he sees something she don't like, or she sees something, whatever, she don't like, she's going to tell him.
That's typically the way it is, yeah.
Yeah. So honesty is the key. Item number 2, don't hide money. Don't hide money. It's kind of amazing how many people out there have a secret account or, stashing money somewhere for whatever reason. Don't do that. It's kind of it's not necessarily a bad thing that you have some money saved, but the other spouse may not look too favorably upon it if they find out about it. Okay. You need to discuss who's responsible for what. All right. So I'm definitely old school. And what I mean by that is when you're married, there's no his account, my account, I pay these bills, he pays these bills. I've kind of always been under the belief that everything should funnel into a joint account and then bills should be paid together. Okay. Now, the modern world doesn't necessarily agree with me on that in all cases. You might pay the mortgage, he might pay the property taxes, you might pay the light bills, you might pay the cable. That's fine, I guess, if it works. But remember, when you entered into this marital contract, you did do it as a team. So I'm definitely one of those people who think it's wise to have joint accounts and stuff like that. And then final point is, marriage is a legal contract. So if one person runs up debt, it's also the other partners. In this office and in my whole career, I've heard about, people who, let's use an extreme example, they gamble, okay? And suddenly you've got $40,000, $50,000 of credit card debt sitting out there that the other spouse didn't know about. A lot of people will be like, oh, I'd just walk away from that situation. A lot of people don't feel that way. This is their spouse. And they understand that they took on that obligation to pay off that debt, for the other person, even though they don't like it. So, okay, so some final successful pointers on having successful money and relationship. We've already talked about working on finances as a team. Try not to make any stupid purchases that the other spouse don't know about. I know I've done it. Have you done it before?
Oh, yeah, I've done it. If you have time on this podcast, I'd be happy to share.
Man, we got all the time in the world.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, I was hoping you were going to say no. No, but no, it was early on in our marriage, and I just had a motorcycle on the brain, and all of a sudden I just found a deal on one and just bought one. And just showed up at the house with the trailer and this motorcycle in the back. And I'll never forget the look on my wife's face when she saw that and then saw me. And we had a conversation. And anyways, but no, she, obviously we've got through it. But there's just some times, and just like I'm sure most other people have them too, that that probably wasn't too smart.
It's funny you mentioned a motorcycle, because I've heard other stories of four-wheelers. I've heard
guys,
I guess boys and their toys.
Yeah,
is kind of really what you want to say.
It's not guy stuff, because there's, my daughters love being on the four-wheelers too, but
yeah, exactly.
Toys,
purses, shoes.
Hey, let's
that.
Let's just focus on us. Let's not focus on the spouse, because we could be here all day. No,
up on the man. You're gonna get me in trouble.
Sorry, just kidding.
Okay, work towards shared goals. If you're talking, if you're communicating, if you're having open and honest communications, it's important for the spouse to say, hey, we want to take a family trip to Disney. That's a common shared goal that you might want to plan for at some point in the future. You want to retire at a certain age. You want to pay for kids' college. All those things need to be discussed. And I can always tell when families come into my office whether they've been talking or not, because I can see the looks they pass back and forth between each other.
Yeah.
Like total shock and awe.
Like, what?
What the
Or
hell?
just
What
cross
the hell
your
is
arms
that?
and- yeah.
Oh yeah, if they cross arms and sit back, the meeting's over because
Yeah,
somebody's
boy.
in trouble.
That's good.
Communication's the key. And then I put down here in my notes, be generous. Be generous, but not to a fault. I want, if you're a spiritual couple and you feel like tithing to the church, be generous. Support ministries. Support your local church. Support your Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Work it in there to where you feel good as a couple to be generous. Be generous to your children, but not to a fault. Give them what they need. Give them what they earn, but not to a fault. Okay. So we've talked about all the successful relationships and the successful marriages, but now we need to talk about the flip side of the coin. What happens in a divorce? Okay. Money in a divorce can be extremely terrible. It can be irritating. It can be messy. Disastrous.
Yeah.
Messy is the perfect way to look for it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw a little disclaimer out there real quick and just, to say, divorce in the United States varies by state. Okay. There's things out there called community property states, and I'm just going to use California as an example. But community property states are where the spouse is entitled to 50% no matter what, no matter who earned it, no matter anything, 50-50. Okay. I didn't look this up, but I think there's 13 community property states. And if you're looking at a map of the United States, I think it starts like in Washington and just kind of rolls its way down the west coast and down the southern border, and then you include Louisiana in there. So, if you're listening to this podcast from California, as an example, which I hope you are, realize you're in a community property state. And if divorce is on the table for you, then be prepared, because 50% is kind of the general rule. So every state's different. Between state laws, beneficiaries, dividing assets, detangling your finances can be incredibly complicated. So if you and your spouse can do this, here are some pointers to possibly help. Okay. I know this sounds weird right off the bat, but try to work together. You've already come to the agreement that marriage is not going to be a situation you're going to be in any longer. Why make it worse by arguing more? And what we've seen is sometimes it's just the smallest details. Like, I want that vase. well, I bought that vase. It's something stupid like that will hang up the whole divorce proceedings. So, try to work together, try to be amicable. I don't want to use the word friendly, but try to be reasonable when it comes to getting through this thing. Legal representation. It's always a good idea to have an attorney, not necessarily who specializes in divorce, but somebody who can help guide you. Read over the legal documents, make sure you're not giving something that you didn't want to give, and so forth. So you don't necessarily need one, but keep in mind that if your spouse has an attorney, that spouse is being represented by that attorney, and that attorney does not represent you, and they really don't care what your feelings are towards things, okay? Okay, close joint bank accounts, pretty simple thing to do. Depending on your bank, you just go in and say, hey, I'm getting divorced. Some banks will just take the person's name off. Some people will tell you you have to open up a brand new account. Then you got to go through all the rigmarole of doing that, but it's really not a big deal. Another pointer, get a copy of your credit report for any open credit cards and loans. Once again, this might be a situation where you do uncover something that you didn't know existed. A spouse might have a credit card out there that you didn't know about. Definitely needs to be talked about. Dividing the assets. Keep in mind that sometimes the smallest details are not worth fighting over. I said that a few minutes ago, but really think about that, okay? It can be simple, it can be complicated, it's going to be up to you. And then, of course, refinancing the home. If you end up with a home and your spouse is still on the title, you need to refinance that home at some point to get that person's name off of there for free and legal clear of the title. And then, of course, that other spouse does not have any liability towards the home. So, okay, so we're going to close the show on that. Sorry, it's kind of a downer topic, but divorce is reality in this country. People go through it all the time. Hopefully, those are just a couple of simple pointers that we can give to you. So, money and relationships do not have to be complicated. As a matter of principle, it can be quite easy, assuming you just follow a few simple rules and ideas. We have seen many examples of couples working together and succeeding in meeting their goals, and they've never had any issues. Unfortunately, we've seen the other side of the coin and watched couples separate due to money issues. Okay, so please don't let financial situations be the reason for divorce. It's simply not worth it because it can be worked through, and you'll do much better as a team than individually trying to do it on your own. My heartfelt thanks goes out to all of you for listening today. A special thanks to Joe Jolan from Jolan Media for joining me today and providing his amazing feedback and information. We do want to send a special shout out to Todd Slatke, though, our normal guy who's with us today, my partner at Great River Investments, Joe. Our Todd and his wife Kay are brand new grandparents.
Wow, congratulations, Todd.
Yep, they're up visiting the grandbaby today, so congratulations to them. We want to hear from you, so please reach out to me by either giving me a call at 319-576-2264 or visiting my website at www.greatriverinvestments.com. Go to the contact us section of the site. I don't know why I can't say that.
Every time.
And I, a member of my team, may be in touch with you shortly to discuss our next steps together. Thank you again for listening to the Marvin Knows Finances show. This has been Marvin Thompson, your certified financial planner. Have an amazing day.